What's up everyone, welcome back to another episode of Reef RX. On today's episode I will be giving you a tour of my sump in my Waterbox 110.4 and I'll also be showing you how I added a Refugium chamber as well. Get ready to dive in. So here's what my sump looks like. I have two clear DI4 fleece filter rollers. I have a coral box skimmer. I am currently using my auto top-off chamber for a Refugium, but I do not want to do that any further. If you see, there's about probably less than a quarter inch for the water before it overflows onto the floor, and I just think I would sleep better at night knowing I don't have to worry about that. I do have some Marine Pure biomedia. There's a big brick at the bottom. I also have some cubes in my Refugium, and I also have some cubes below the filter fleece rollers. I am using a Neptune Core 20 pump for my return pump. I have a check valve on the outlet so the water doesn't drain back into the tank. I have two heaters in the first chamber. I have a 600 watt, which is a bit too much, so I am going to be downgrading that to probably a 300 watt. And then I have a backup heater, which I believe is 150 watts, but only turns on if the temperature drops below a certain number. I do have 6 fans in the back there to help cool the tank if the tank gets overheated. I have a power head in my sump to keep the water moving for when I dose alkalinity, magnesium, and so on. So I have 2 drains here. I have my emergency drain, then I have my main overflow drain, which has a needle valve on it. In that chamber, it goes into where the filter fleece rollers are. You could also put filter socks there, but I'm lazy and don't want to change those out all the time and wash them out, so I use filter rollers. They work pretty good. Once the water level hits this sensor here, it triggers the motor to run. I use a Y-site connector, which triggers both filter fleece rollers to activate the motor. So they both turn at the same time, so they'll both run out at the same time. From that chamber, it goes into my main chamber. The water goes into the main chamber where you have a coral box skimmer. I am running ozone on my tank, so if you see the air inlet, I have one line that's coming from the outside, so to keep the pH up with fresh air, and then I have one line that's coming from my ozone generator. And then on top of the skimmer cup, I have some carbon pads to catch any unused ozone. So the ozone does a really great job at helping keep my tank water crystal clear. So in the main chamber, I have a pump that pumps water into my auto top-off reservoir, aka Refugium. So that's what we're going to be replacing today. So I have space on the right side here next to the skimmer, which is where I plan to put my Refugium. I'll put a couple acrylic panels up to separate to make a new chamber, so what I will have happen is the water level rise where the skimmer is to overflow into the Refugium and then to go into my return pump chamber. So this is what it looks like. I'm excited to make these changes. It will mean one less piece of equipment on my tank, which is always good because I can eliminate this pump for the Refugium. And so let's do it. So first I'll start off by measuring the sump chamber where I'll be putting my acrylic panel in so I can cut it to the right length. So once I'm just cutting on my floor here, I put down some cardboard just so I wouldn't ruin the carpet. This is an outdoor carpet, so it should be fine if it were to slip. So then I measure my piece of acrylic that I'm going to be cutting, and I use a T-square just so I get a nice straight even cut. I use this acrylic cutting tool that scores the acrylic, so I go over it about probably 12 times to score it, and then I can snap it right off. It's very important to make sure you're wearing eye protection during this. So my next step is going to be to drain my sump. I don't need it absolutely dry because I'm not making this a watertight seal, so I still allow water to come in through the bottom. But I do need to drain it as much as possible. So once I've drained the tank, I went ahead and scraped the glass where I'll be siliconing the acrylic panels with a razor blade. And once I did that, I took a paper towel, sprayed it with some rubbing alcohol, and wipe down the inside where I will be siliconing the acrylic to the glass, just so I had a nice surface to adhere to. So there's my panel all cut and ready to go. So I'll go ahead and place that into my tank to find out the best placement. I want to make sure I leave a tiny bit of room between that Marine Pure block at the bottom, just in case I need to remove it. It won't be a hassle. I'm also placing some panels on the back wall here in the side of the new chamber, just so the light spillage doesn't grow algae in unwanted places. Bought some aquarium safe silicone off of Amazon, so that's what I'm using to glue this. So I put a small bead of silicone up the corners, and then I use my finger to spread it evenly. Once everything's in place and I've siliconed all the edges, it needs to dry. I'm not trying to dry it for the full 24 hours like the bottle recommends, only because this does not need to be watertight, but I will dry it for about 2 hours. I did turn on a dehumidifier I have in the home just to make sure the air was dry and warm, and then I also used a hair dryer to add some heat. Once everything's dry to the touch, all the silicone's dry, all the panels are in place, I went ahead and added a little bit of water to the sump and transferred my Kato and my Marine Pure blocks over to the Refugium. I have the Tunes lights that I've been using for my Refugium. They work awesome. They're waterproof, so I don't need to worry about getting them wet. I put them right into the water. When I shut the sump off, they will get wet as the water will rise, but I don't have to worry about those. So these, and they fit perfectly. Like these you would think were made for the width of this sump. Once I got the lights in place, I go ahead and return my skimmer back into my tank. I took that out just so I had the extra space. It would be too hard to silicone with the skimmer in the tank. So then I filled up my sump with fresh salt water, so I even got a water change out of this whole project. So here's the finished product. I mean, this came out awesome. This came out better than I originally expected. I'm super excited to be growing some Kato. I ordered some pods off of Algae Barn the other day, so those should be arriving soon, so I'll make a video of those, but I want to make sure I seed my Refugium to get the most out of it that I can. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really had fun with this project. It was something I've been wanting to do for a long time, so I'm glad I was able to share it with you. If you have any questions, please be sure to leave them in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see future videos, please be sure to subscribe.